Hey guys, it's Mario here, and in this video I wanted to cover a very common question that I'm getting, and this is probably something you wondered as well at a certain point in time, and that is, why am I not getting stronger? So this is something I asked myself many times, especially in the beginning, in the first couple of years of training. There's no strength gains. Why is it not happening? And it's a very generic question. It's a very generalized question. There's not a lot of data to make a very specific assessment and give very specific advice, but there's a lot of common issues that happen when you're not getting stronger. So with this video, I wanted to cover things like training, nutrition, what's happening with recovery, what you can do to make that training session a little bit more productive, what could be causing you to not experience those strength gains as fast as you want to. And mentioning the speed here, and you need to kind of manage your expectations as well to know how fast you should be getting stronger and what's kind of the average. So for a beginner, for someone just starting out, the newbie gains phase, and that's how it's usually referred to, you should be making gains on a workout to workout basis, right? Every time you step in a gym for the first couple of months, you should be able to add extra pounds to the bar, and that's just the way it is. As a newbie, you're so far from your genetic potential that you should be able to make gains very easily without any special help. And going further, you're going to notice that the gains are just slowing down, and eventually you're going to reach that intermediate phase. That's a phase where you can make gains maybe on a bi-weekly basis, and it is just getting a lot harder, and the weights you're lifting a lot heavier as well. So just simply the gains are coming much slower, both in terms of muscle and in terms of strength. So going further, that intermediate phase can last up to like 4 or 5 years for some guys, and at that point you might reach an advanced stage where you can lift basically for 3-4 months without seeing any PRs, without seeing any progress. And that's a common thing. People who've been lifting for 10-15 years, they can expect a PR every 6 months. That's just the way it is. And if you've been lifting for a while, you notice that it just eventually slows down. But by that point, you already reached a lot of those gains. So let's analyze a little bit of the training. So what could be wrong with the training? So there's two things really that influence a lot of that training thing. And that is, number one, is that balance between either if you're overtraining or if you're undertraining. So when you're training, you need an adequate stimulants to provide strength gains. So there has to be enough work done in order for you to get stronger. So if you're not working enough and you feel fresh, recovered, feeling good, you're not doing enough work, you're just going to the gym, you're not working hard enough, then you're probably not going to become stronger, and that's just the way it is. And I'm not talking about going to muscle failure, but I'm talking about if you're doing 2-3 sets of 5 and you just don't feel like that you're progressing, you might want to try to amp that up to maybe 5 sets of 5 or whatever is in your training plan, because you might not be doing enough of volume to stimulate those adaptations. And then that brings me to the point that too much can be a problem as well, because when you're training, your level of fitness is going up. Like ultimately when you're lifting, your level of fitness is going up, but another thing that's going up is your level of fatigue as well. And at a certain point, you will reach a level where your fatigue is going to surpass your level of fitness. And at that point, your level of fatigue is masking the level of fitness you have. Your performance, your strength, and all these other things are here. And even if you progress a little bit, you can't see that progress because the fatigue is masking it. And that's why we take deloads. What a deload does, it just lowers the fatigue, lets that fatigue dissipate, then you can express your level of strength here and all the progress you made, and you can make new gains. And that's why deloads are so important and should be a part of every single workout plan. At about 5th or 6th week, you should be able to just feel that you need a deload, because if you're working hard enough, you will need a deload. And the level of fatigue and fitness, the beauty of it is that fatigue will dissipate a lot faster than your level of fitness when you take a deload week. And I've talked about deload weeks before, and I'll leave a video in the description below for you guys to check that out. It explains everything you need to know about deloads. So going further with the training plan, a very common one is simply not training with proper specificity. So what I mean by that is that guys are changing lifts too frequently. So if you want to get stronger at a squat, you want to be training squats all the time. Like squats shouldn't be leaving your training program. If you want to get strong at a pull-up, if you want to master a pull-up, you should be doing some form of pull-up. Even though if you can't do one, maybe you can do negatives. Maybe you can do something that is very closely related to a pull-up. Because if you have too much variety in your training plan, if you're changing your training plan every couple of weeks, you're essentially in that learning phase non-stop, and you're not allowing yourself to learn the lift, and then you can get stronger at it, right? Same it would be like, hey, you're learning to ride a bicycle, and you're riding a bicycle, and I give you a skateboard. Then in 2 weeks from then, you master a little bit of the skateboard, I give you like a snowboard thing, and then after that I give you skis, and then after that I give you a one wheel bicycle, and I'm constantly giving you new things to master. You never give yourself enough time to learn the lift, and so you can progress in that specific lift. So don't change your lifts too frequently, especially if you're in that beginner intermediate stage. You don't need to change those main lifts, probably not at all. You should be a master of certain lifts, and you should leave them in your training plan and progress with them, and just maybe make some changes more frequently in those isolation, in those assistance lifts. So that's a big point here. Then we're going into nutrition. So with nutrition, you can expect to progress slower if you're in a caloric deficit. That's common sense. If you're on a diet, you can't expect to progress as fast, or if you're in a gaining phase. If you're in a gaining phase, you should be progressing quite frequently. And for most people, if they're in a gaining phase, the gains will be coming. And that's one thing there is that you see, if you're in a caloric deficit, even as a newbie, you might experience a lot slower progress. And that's where you have to pick, okay, what's more important, losing fat or gaining strength? For most people, it's gonna be losing fat until they get into that healthy fat range. And then once they do that, they can probably get in a lean gaining, maybe a maintenance, maybe a bulk phase, then they will get stronger. So that's really a key point with nutrition. There's not a lot with nutrition here. It's really about that, all those calories. If you have enough calories, you probably experience to be a little bit more strong. So in a sense of recovery, really important thing is sleep, right? If you're not getting enough sleep, you will probably experience less strength gains. And that's just a fact. Sleep is very, very critical for recovery. And if you're not getting enough sleep, by enough, I mean at least 7 hours, you might experience less strength gains. So want to look into that. If you're chronically underslept, that's probably why you're not making as many gains as you would want to. Going further than that, I want to talk about some general workout stuff that I guess not many people talk about, and that's simply what are you focused on and what are you doing during your workout. So the thing is, if you're unfocused, if you're checking your Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, if you're taking selfies throughout your workout, you're probably not gonna be as strong as you can be because your focus is somewhere else. And training is a skill. Let's say I tell you, hey, you need to, I don't know, make me like some sculpture or paint something, and at the same time, you need to be doing something on Facebook, like maybe some marketing. It's just not possible to do that because your brain can actually only focus on one thing. They did studies on this. You can actually just focus on one thing. And what seems multitasking is actually just switching fast between things. And just the fact that you attempt multitasking, it reduces every single marker of performance out there, like IQ, like focus, everything will go down. And that's something I see a lot of guys in the gym, they're just checking their phones nonstop, they're just talking to people, they're seeking conversation, they're just doing random stuff. They're never really there in the gym, present to the moment, really focused on the workout and getting shit done. And really between sets, if you check your phone, quit doing that, right? Stop fucking doing that and focus on visualizing the next set. Really be there present for that 1 hour or 2 hours, however much time you're spending in the gym. Dedicate that time for yourself. Use it as kind of an active meditation, put in the effort, and you will get the result. It's a really, really critical point. And one final thing I want to mention here is simply tracking your workouts, because you could be getting stronger and not knowing it. And I know I've been there. I haven't tracked my workouts for a year or two, and I really regret that I haven't done that. And now I'm using these apps. For Android, I would recommend an app called FitNotes. For iPhone, I would recommend an app called Strong, because these apps will tell you when you hit a PR, when it's just reps, when you can't really remember what happened. So sometimes you might hit a leg curl for like, I don't know, 70 kilos for like 10 reps, and then you're like thinking, shit, I don't know if that's a PR or not, because like 3-4 weeks ago, maybe you hit 65 for 12 reps, and it is a PR in reps, and you don't know about it. So it's really important to have some kind of training log so you can kind of know if you're progressing or not, because you could be making progress, you don't even know about it because you just track 1 or 2 lifts. You should be tracking everything. It's very easy because you can use it. That's something you can use throughout the sets, throughout your workout. When you just finish a set and you click, hey, I did this, and you can use the timer as well to time your rest. It's a really, really good app. So like both of them, I'm gonna leave them in the description below so you guys can use that. And those are some of my kind of general tips that will really help you out. If you're missing any one of these will give you very high return on investment in your effort, in your time. One final thing, I want to briefly touch upon is really technique and watching videos and learning videos, watching other people lift. There's example of elite athletes, they always watch other elite athletes play to immerse themselves into that learning through mirror neurons and really mimicking their own movements and getting ideas from other people and getting all these other, like, inspiration at least. There's so many things you get from watching other successful people lift that it's unbelievable that I see so many people not doing this. And if you look at NBA players, they constantly watch other NBA players play and they get ideas from them, they learn from them, right? We are visual learners. We can learn just by observing others do things. And that's what really makes us awesome as learning I guess creatures, right? So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed the tips. Let me know in the comments below if you find this helpful, if any one of these things are really struck a chord for you and you said, shit, I haven't been doing that. So let me know which one of these will you implement in the comments below as well. If you have any questions, as always, I read all of your comments, so make sure to leave that in the comments below. Aside from that, make sure to click that subscribe button to support the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.